I'm female 19, and my siblings are female 19, twin, and male 20. This starts in 2020 with virus. My government was issuing about $1,500 a week, fortnight, don't know exact, to people who couldn't work. I was one and ended up receiving $13K in payments. It was all put away into a bank account only my parents had access to, my life savings account. They had also put small sums of money for birthdays for my grandparents, etc., but nowhere near $13K. My parents hit some hard financial times and took most of that $13K and used it to buy a car, saying they would pay me back. They told me I would have access to that bank account for my 21st. Now, I've been looking at buying a car. I assumed I had a large amount of money saved in my life savings, and I have also been putting about $650 a week for the past 4 months. I decided I would buy a new mid-range car. I decided on a car last week. It was my absolute dream car, and I was meant to put the deposit down today. My parents had been involved and supportive throughout the whole months-long process. My mom sat me down today and pretty much gave me options. They can pay me back the $13K, but it will mean that my siblings will not be able to have anywhere near that amount, and it wasn't fair on them. She said she will not be giving me money for my 21st birthday if I take the $13K, and instead, taking my birthday money and using it to top up my siblings' accounts. She explained that she does not have the money to backpay my $13K, and also give my siblings and myself birthday money. My siblings will still be getting access to their own government payouts, it just isn't as much as mine. My mother told me I can either take the $13K, and I do not get a 21st birthday gift, and it will be used for my siblings, or not take the $13K and probably have it split between us. I don't understand why I should be punished for getting more compensation. While I was still out of work, my siblings were back working and put that money into their main accounts. Yes, it wasn't near as much as the payments, but that money is still mine as it was compensation for no work. Both of my siblings already have cars, and my brother has moved out. I've waited and saved so long for the perfect car. I don't understand why I will have to sit there on my twin and I's birthday and pretend to be happy when I receive nothing, and my sister gets basically a birthday gift and half my money. My mom has brought up the fact that she should have been charging me rent and that I am ungrateful and mentioning birthday gifts she has given me. I said I wanted to have the $13K, and she told me I was being spiteful, would never be happy, and to be honest with her. I said I don't think it's fair to top up my siblings' account with my money to make it fair for them. She called me ungrateful, and it was my fault they wouldn't have any money. Would I be the a-hole if I take the $13K, or do I split with my siblings and forfeit my dream car? Your parents deliberately stole from you. Now they are trying to guilt you into forgiving them for that, and forgiving the debt. Insist upon the money, and then seriously consider cutting ties with them, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole for being upset with your parents about their conditions on getting your own money back. They took your $13,000, deprived you of the interest on it, and now they're trying to manipulate you by threatening to deprive your siblings of money if you insist on getting your own money back, and threatening not to give you money for your 21st birthday either, just for wanting your own money back. This all sounds completely unfair. Did they take all the money from your siblings' accounts too? For that matter, did they make your siblings pay rent? This is your money, they owe it to you, and they should not threaten to punish you simply for wanting repayment. I was with my first boyfriend, A, from the ages of 16 to 27. After we graduated from university at age 25, I moved to a different city for work, and we tried long distance, but those last 2 years were not good. We eventually tried seeing other people, but for a while we were sleeping together when he came home. One weekend, A came home to tell me it was over for good. He had met the woman he wanted to marry. We ended on good terms, and before I moved neighborhoods, I would often see his mother at the market and got on well with her too. Not long before A and I broke up, I started seeing B, who I would eventually marry. Not long after A and I broke up, I discovered I was pregnant. The balance of probability strongly indicated it was B's, and I guess I sort of buried my head in the sand about the possibility of it being A's. When my son was born, he looked more like me, but at around 6 months, it became blatantly obvious that was A's son. He was the absolute spit of him. I told my husband, who was obviously freaked out, but we're doing good now. I then decided to tell A. This brings us to November 2020. Sadly, days after I told A, he died in a car accident. His wife was in the car but escaped with some broken bones. I do not know if A ever told her about my son. I waited a few months after the death and decided I needed to tell his parents, as we do live in the same city, and the chances of running into them are relatively high. They were initially upset, but are now delighted to have a grandson. However, they have forbidden me from telling A's wife, as she apparently still isn't in a good place. I haven't even met her. I saw her at the funeral, but obviously it wasn't appropriate to talk then. A's parents don't believe she knows and think this information could be really hurtful to her when she is in a bad place, but I really do think she deserves to know this information sooner rather than later. There will never be a good time, and I'd rather it come from me than someone else. Edit. More info. Most of the questions have been the same, and I would like to answer them below. I've accepted that most people clearly wouldn't want to know this info, and plan on leaving the grandparents to break the news when they feel the time is right. Did you DNA test? After I told my husband, he requested one as he wanted to know for certain. We tested against him, and he is not the father. There are no other options. I have suggested to the grandparents we do another test, but they aren't overly bothered about doing one. Why would you tell her? As I think she will find out anyway. She is still quite close with her in-laws, and although they are very keen to keep it quiet, they're also grandparents excited about their first grandson with all that entails. I'm not sure how secret they can keep him with social media, family, photos, etc. I don't want her being blindsided by this information and feeling like it's been kept from her. I would have no problem with her knowing my son, or not knowing him if that's what she wants. From what I know about her, she's a good person who made A really happy, and this is part of A. Personally, I would not want to know, although I've accepted this isn't what most people would clearly want. Do you want inheritance? Nope. My son has a legal and actual father in my husband. My husband is on the birth certificate and is his daddy. I do not feel we have any right or need anything from A's estate. Did you have an affair? I wouldn't say so. A and I were both aware the other was dating other people, but were both a bit codependent back then, and continued sleeping together occasionally. When he met his wife, he knew she was the one, and put off going on a date with her until he had told me it was over. I'd been seeing my future husband very casually at that point, who was also seeing other people at this time. Sorry, it's a big mess. You would be the a-hole. I get that your child is a part of your ex, but your husband is your child's dad. Your ex's widow would only experience pain knowing he had a child with someone other than her, and she will be resentful, not only toward her late husband, but to you and your child. Don't do it, OP. Your ex's widow doesn't need this grief. Don't tell her. Have A's parents tell her. They know her better, plus should be able to judge when she'll be ready to hear about A's child. No good can come from you telling her, plus it's almost guaranteed she'll take it badly if you tell her. You would be the a-hole if you tell her, especially if she's still grieving. You would be the a-hole. Your ex's parents know her better than you. By your own admission, you've never even met her. So if they say this information would be damaging for her, especially right now, don't do it. Let this woman heal, and later, revisit this convo with your ex's parents and see what they say. Follow their lead. My daughter is 24 years old. For her entire life, she has neglected her teeth. Her dental hygiene is non-existent. She would refuse to brush or floss her teeth at all, wouldn't even use mouthwash. My first thought was that she may be suffering from depression or some sort of mental health issue, so I immediately took her to professionals. However, even after years of doctors, therapists, medication, and specialists, my daughter still refuses to take care of her teeth. I got multiple opinions from multiple professionals. They all said the same thing. We don't know why she won't brush her teeth. Try XYZ. There's nothing more we can do for you. I spent years crying, begging, bargaining, and screaming at her in an attempt to get her to take it seriously. She never did, but under my care, she'd at least brush her teeth occasionally, 2 or 3 times a week. I kept trying up until she reached adulthood and moved out. At that point, there was nothing more I could do for her, and I assumed she completely stopped caring for her teeth at that point. Recently, she went to the dentist because of severe pain after putting it off for years. They discovered her teeth were pretty much completely ruined. She had to have most of them pulled. She called me crying about how ugly she felt, and she begged me to pay for her to get crowns, veneers. I refused for several reasons. 1, it would be incredibly expensive. We're talking upwards of $10K. 2, she got herself into this mess by not taking care of her teeth, despite me warning her throughout her entire life and doing all I could to help her. 3, she hasn't yet to show she can maintain proper dental hygiene, and without proper maintenance, she will likely ruin the crowns, veneers anyways. I told her as much, and she said she'll have to figure it out herself. She's obviously furious and thinks I'm a huge a-hole. She is saying I am a horrible mother and betraying her by not paying for it. It's honestly starting to get to me, and I'm doubting my decision. I can technically afford it, but I would have to use money from my retirement fund. So here I am, asking for opinions from the internet. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. And you said she hasn't actually changed her hygiene habits, so the underlying issue is not unresolved. You'll spend what, 10, 12K, and be back to square one in a year or 2. Don't do it. Yep, if she really wants it, she'll earn that money and actually take care of her teeth, because she'll have to match her words with her wallet. Not the a-hole. However, it's not fair to act like this is a choice she made of her own accord. This behavior is definitely rooted in mental illness, and we don't know enough about you or her to properly judge the validity of her actions. Not the a-hole. She's old enough to take care of herself, and she seems to feel awfully entitled to your money. You did what you could, and now she's experiencing natural consequences. It would be kind and loving to pay for it, but that doesn't work when she vilifies you for not. My family is originally from a country with a very distinct style of cooking that is hard to replicate in the States. Growing up, my mom always did the cooking for big family events and at home for the immediate family, so her cooking was a huge part of my childhood. For one of my birthdays, I asked her for a cookbook of as many of the recipes as she could remember, so I have this handwritten journal full of my favorite childhood recipes. This cookbook has a lot of sentimental value to me, especially since my mother passed away shortly after. My cousin has been pestering me about borrowing the cookbook for years. She claims it's fair because my mother's cooking was just as much a part of her childhood as mine. She feels this way because her own mother was an aggressive, neglectful alcoholic, and her dad was absent. So my mom was often a mother figure to her, and in all honesty, her only parent-like figure. She spent some time living with us, and she sometimes called my mom, Mom. I have offered to let her take pictures or scan it. She says it would take too long and wouldn't mean as much as the real thing. The reason I am against her just taking it is because my cousin is a messy, clumsy person, especially in the kitchen. I have never seen her cook a meal without causing some huge mess or spill. This scares me because the cookbook is not laminated or protected in any way. It's just paper and pencil. I had the family over for Thanksgiving and realized the morning after that my cookbook was gone. I immediately sent my cousin multiple texts because I knew it was her, but didn't get an answer. So today I went over in person. She answers the door and immediately starts crying and justifying herself. She spilled tomato sauce all over the book and then soaked it trying to clean up the tomato sauce. Most of the pages are pretty much destroyed and illegible. Nobody else in the family knows all those recipes. I feel like I've lost a part of my mother and a part of my childhood. I plan to pursue legal action. The family has caught wind of this and I've received a flurry of messages calling me an a-hole and various other names, saying how I'm ruining the family over a book and a mistake, etc., etc. I really empathize with her grief over my mom, and I know they had a close relationship. I also understand that she didn't spill on the book intentionally, and that she feels bad about it. I don't think that justifies her stealing and ruining something with that level of sentimental value to me, especially after I said no, gave reasoning for the no, and offered alternatives. So, would I be the a-hole if I sue? I'm saying not the a-hole because your cousin clearly shouldn't have stolen the cookbook and ruined it. But I don't understand what you would get out of a lawsuit. There's no meaningful monetary value to be recovered, so a lawsuit is impossible. But OP could also stop indulging in the fiction that the cousin accidentally ruined the book. Nobody has ever accidentally doused a book in tomato sauce and then accidentally soaked it with cleaner trying to fix it. Nope, literally did not happen. Cousin stole the book, probably vandalized it, got cold feet and knew she'd get caught, and soaked it in tomato sauce and cleaner to cover the first vandalism. It was not accidentally destroyed. She just realized she wasn't going to get away with stealing it. Also, sounds like a way to make sure nobody got to keep the recipes. It was a very, if I can't have it, nobody can. Not the a-hole, but sue her for the cost of having a conservationist try to restore what they can. Chances are, they may bring to life the imprints of the writing from the book and copy it for you.